guys, my name is Annabelle from Horizon Cosplay, and today we are finally going to be making the petticoat to go with my Briar Rose shirt and corset. Now this project has been a long time in the making, not gonna lie, thought it would be done like a couple months ago, so I suppose we better get on with it. Let's go!
So the first thing I needed to do was to make a pattern for my petticoat, but with only crinkled paper I had to get ironing that first before I could draw anything. I also really need to buy myself a new ironing board. This one is small and honestly rubbish, but I will get a new one sometime soon. Hopefully anyway, keep your fingers crossed for me. Then came the pattern drafting. As the petticoat needed to be longer in the back than in the front, I decided to do an off-centre circle skirt for the top piece and then ruffle straight lanes of tulle underneath it. To make sure that it fit me, I measured my waist and then found a plate slightly bigger than my waist measurement to draw around. I wanted it to be slightly bigger so that I could give it a bit of an elastic waistband to help keep it up. And with a quick try on of the pattern paper piece, it looked perfect. Also, the pattern for this and all the other pieces of my Briar Rose cosplay are available now on both my Ko-Fi and my Etsy shop. You can find the link in the description down below. If you're interested, please do go check it out, it really helps me out.
So sorry about the noise, but my washing machine is currently on in the background, and as I rather need to do my laundry, we're just gonna try and ignore it, but my apologies anyway. So initially for the petticoat, I actually had a really nice pink cotton bedsheet that I was going to use for the top half so that it wasn't that heavy. However, because we've moved, I don't know where that bedsheet is, I can't find it. I've unpacked what I think is all my boxes. There may have been a suitcase left at Ben's mum's, which we will investigate this week because I'm missing like a lot of other projects as well, which isn't good, but it's fine because we have the main fabric for Aurora and I have like more than enough of this fabric than what I need. So we're just going to use a little bit of this and hope that it turns out well. It's not too heavy. To be fair, this is very nice, light, silky fabric. So I'm not predicting too many issues. Just does mean a little bit more overlocking than I would have liked. But you know what? Sometimes that's just life. Either way, let's get cutting.
Once the top of my petticoat was cut out, I then ran my scissors down the centre back as that was where I wanted to install the zip. I then cut out a waistband before giving it all an iron. Also, I know that I should really iron the fabric before I cut it out, but considering how much fabric I had to deal with here and how awful my ironing board is, I think you guys can forgive me just this once. The next thing on the list was to pin the zip to the skirt before giving it a quick and, if I may say so myself, fairly neat stitch on. And as always, after the stitching was done, we gave those edges a good old overlock. Honestly, this fabric seems like it might be a bad one for fraying, so I'm not going to be taking any chances here if I can help it. I then pinned the waistband in place and stitched on the outside edge. Once that was done, I got this crazy, absurd idea to hand stitch the other edge to the wrong side with teeny tiny little invisible stitches, so that's what we did. And you know what? It took hours, but damn, did it look good when it was done.
Well, it's been about 4 hours and I can say nearly all of the hand stitching is done. Not quite though, and what I'm going to do right now is just put the elastic into the waistband, at least so it's attached on one end so that I can seal that end up, finish off the hand stitching, and then we'll pull it tight in a minute. Honestly, kind of thought this would be done by now, but I sacrificed speed for quality, okay? And you can't blame me for that.
And by the time that was all done, it was 11 o'clock at night, and so I happily went to bed as my mum and dad were coming to visit the next day, and I figured I should look maybe just a little bit awake when they knocked on my door.
And good morning guys, so this is how far we got with the petticoat yesterday. Pretty much the whole top of it is done, bottom edge is still raw, but the zip is installed, the elastic is threaded through, and today's first task is going to be fitting the elastic to my waist. In which case, I'm just going to pop this on, and you know what, it's actually really cute just as a skirt. Kind of reminds me of Sailor Moon just a little bit. And let's zip this up the back and decide how tight we want it to be.
I decided to make the elastic fairly tight just in case it decided to stretch a little over time. It's still very comfy and all, but it just means that it sits firmly around my waist. Once that was done and decided, I hand stitched the end of the elastic into the waistband before enclosing the end as well. Next up, I put the half done skirt back on and attached both a popper and a hook and eye. I decided to do both because, as I mentioned before, the elastic is fairly tight and I don't want it coming undone. The zip also seems to want to slip down a little more than I would like, and having the top firmly closed will help discourage that as much as possible because you know guys, it is very important to train your zippers. Also, both this popper and the hook and eye have been recycled off old pieces of clothing that I have remade into other things, so I assure you that nothing is going to waste on this project.
And that's it, the top of the petticoat is all done, so next is on to the bottom tulle pieces, but first I actually kind of need to work out how much tulle I want to put under there. Kind of thinking that 3 layers would be nice, but I'm not sure how wide I need to make the layers, and I haven't decided how much I want in each layer, like how much gathering there should be. So I suppose I need to now sit down and do some actual maths, which is always a fun part of the project. So yeah, let's get that done next.
So the first thing that I had to work out was how much length I wanted to add to the skirt with the tulle. I decided on 30 centimeters. This seemed like it would work the whole way around, and I decided that I would just cut straight lines across the tulle and French seam each piece together to make it nice and neat and tidy. Now my roll of tulle is roughly 150 centimeters wide, so for the first layer I'm using 2 pieces of this. The second layer will have 4 pieces and the third layer is going to be 6, or at least that's the plan. Now let's see if we can make that work. After cutting out the first 2 lines of tulle and measuring it up to the skirt, I had a dramatic realisation. I needed to add more, so with 3 lines for the top layer, 6 for the second now, and 9 for the third, coming to a grand total of 18 sections to cut, attach and ruffle, I got going. Once everything was cut out, I got stitching. Now when I stitch tulle, I always reduce my stitch length slightly to make sure it catches as much as possible, as tulle does have a lot of holes in it. I also decided on French seams, which is where you sew the wrong side of the fabric together first before turning it over and sewing the same line right sides together to create an enclosed seam. If that makes absolutely no sense to you, that's absolutely fine. This is why I don't really do tutorial videos, and I highly recommend you just Google it. Also, is it just me, or does tulle not have a right side? Please tell me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I honestly spent way longer than I would like to admit flipping it over and over, trying to see which side should go on the front before shrugging and deciding that if I had to look that hard, it probably didn't matter. And then came the ruffles. I'm lucky enough to have a ruffling stitch on my sewing machine, so of course that's what I used, and of course it did work wonderfully.
Well guys, now that the first layer is complete, it is time to attach it to the skirt and see what it looks like. Hopefully it is enough ruffles, because if not I have one pick tulle, and if you've ever done that you'll know that it is something reserved for only those going to hell for a very, very bad reason. And I would rather avoid it if possible. Fingers crossed for me, eh?
This all went very, very smoothly, but after I'd pinned the first half on, I got a bit of a bad feeling, and then I finished the pinning and had a look at it.
If I hold this skirt up and tell you it's supposed to be the star of the petticoat, what are you going to say to me? Think I know? Give me a moment. You're going to say to me, Annabelle, it isn't even poofy. And you know what? You're bloody well right, and I'm going to have to cut more tulle.
So I unpinned everything before pinning more tulle onto the already existing hoop, choosing to simply cut out one of my French seams rather than unpick the annoying thing. And where did this extra tulle come from, I hear you ask? Well, I hadn't started to sew together my other layers yet, so I managed to momentarily delay cutting out more tulle. Sewing this all together took longer than I would like to admit, as it was at this point my motivation disappeared into the never never and I was unable to retrieve it. So I ate some ice cream instead.
Please don't judge me.
And then I carried on sewing. Pinning it all together, I could see straight away that it looked a lot better, and apparently so could Sherlock. However, here I called it a night as it was getting late and my long weekend was more than over. The next morning before work, however, I was feeling rather motivated and decided to stitch that first layer of tulle on. I did this with another French seam around the circle skirt, which was interesting to do. And as an extra challenge for you all, can you spot the moment my bobbin ran out and I didn't notice?
And this is the first layer of the petticoat done. As you can see on the French seam, there's a few like fluffy bits where the raw edge has just come a bit loose, so I need to go around and trim all those. But otherwise, I'm really happy with this. It looks amazing, it's very poofy. And now we just need to do 2 more of these layers.
Having now used all my cutout tulle, I had to now cut a lot more strips. I decided to double the number of strips I needed for the second layer, meaning that I now needed 12 150cm strips of tulle. That's nearly 18 meters. This is getting ridiculous, people. I think, anyway. But someone please tell me if my math is wrong, as clearly it's definitely not my strong point, as I'm sure you guys can gather by now. And as I got into the cutting groove, I decided to cut everything out for the bottom layer too, doubling the amount again for 24 strips on the bottom layer, which I think is about 36 meters. Gosh, these numbers are absolutely making my head spin. Anyway, the next day we needed to get on with the sewing, so I set everything up within arm's reach and got going. The French seams went together fairly quickly, which, considering how much I'd felt the cutting out was dragging yesterday, I was fairly surprised at. Next, I got the ruffle stitch going again, and once more it felt like we whizzed through it.
So we are halfway through ruffling. There are a lot of very pink ruffles, and the bobbin is kind of looking like it's going to run out soon. Hopefully we'll get through this one, but maybe not the next layer of skirt. And just so you all know, this was a new reel of thread. Do we think it's going to last till the end of the project? Maybe, maybe not. Bets on now, and let's see.
10 seconds later.
And the conclusion is that the bobbin ran out about a foot away from where I needed it to, but you know what, I can hand ruffle that stuff, I'm not too bothered, so I suppose we better get on with the pinning.
And then came the actual hard part. Pinning took forever. I was honestly up till nearly midnight getting it all perfect and even had to open another pot of pins. Oh, I honestly hated this, and I'm not going to lie, this ended up hanging on the bathroom door as the closest thing I had to a naughty corner for several days because I was just so done with this project after all this kerfuffle.
Sherlock, do you have to sit there? I am actually trying to work.
But when I finally came back to it, exactly a week after starting this project by the way, the sewing of everything together went pretty damn smooth, though it did take a little bit longer than I really would have liked. Then for the French seams, rather than pin them down, I simply folded it over as I went. It probably made it a little bit rough, but honestly I was so ready for this project to be done, I didn't mind it being a little bit uneven for the sake of this project actually being finished. And then I decided to try it on.
So, I don't know what happened, but somehow I seem to have made this far too long. This only has 2 layers on, and I was going to add a third, but as you can see, it is way past my knees, which is where I originally wanted it to end. So yeah, I mean, it's not the worst mistake to make, and it is nice, and it is floofy. Not as floofy as I wanted it to be, because apparently it only has 2 layers, and I still have all the rest of the tulle left over. Okay. So I know where we went wrong, or where I went wrong rather, because you guys have done nothing, of course. And basically when I measured how long I wanted this petticoat to be, I decided that I wanted it to be 30 centimetres longer in total. Ish. Like, I don't mind being a bit rough there, but definitely 30 centimetres. And that 30 centimetres was supposed to comprise of 3 layers of tulle. And what I've actually done is cut out 3 layers of tulle, each 30 centimetres wide. So I think we're going to have to fix this, but we're not going to fix it today. So far I'm actually really happy with how it turned out, other than the fact that it is completely the wrong length. It is quite fluffy. It isn't as fluffy as I want it to, but I've got a few different options with how to fix the petticoat, but we're going to look at that another day, because honestly I think this needs to go sit in the naughty corner for a week, and just so that I can have a breather and maybe work on something else. Oh, such is life. I will just say though that by the time this video goes up, the corrected pattern will be available on both my Etsy shop and my Ko-Fi, so please do find it in the link down below. Don't worry, it won't be so that you guys make this mistake as well. I just can't believe I did that. How damn silly can I be? Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please do remember to like and subscribe to, you know, see me fix the petticoat and eventually finish Aurora, because I promise you guys it is happening. Just slower than I would like. I will be back next Wednesday with another sewing video, and until then, have a beautiful day. Bye!